we are at a session where we will be discussing the importance or the impact of artificial intelligence, and we'll sprinkle, of course, that element of trusted artificial intelligence or Web3 based on the startup ecosystem. So we have a very distinguished lineup here, which I will kindly request that they will do the introduction of each of their focus areas at the moment by themselves, but at the same time also tackle the first, let's say, general question which can go up to all of you. And it can be on the topic of how do you see artificial intelligence really impacting the startup ecosystem? Is this a particular vertical that you see that's coming up and it's like you consider it, okay, this is AI? Or are you seeing artificial intelligence as something that's much more broader and horizontal and has impact across multitude of different fields? So we can start with you, Joe. By the way, this is Joe, Ken, Michael, Chris. And of course, they'll give all of their introductions with the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Vezzani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lunar. So we're a social intelligence provider. So if social media impacts you in your business from a B2B standpoint or from a personal standpoint financially, you're going to probably want to go check out lunarcrush.com, little plug. The impact on startups is, I think it's incredible what's happening right now. And I think from a productivity standpoint is probably the largest impact that we're seeing. Small startup, Series A startup like us at Lunar. I think content creation and what we've kind of been able to do, just from, we have real-time data across multiple different social media networks. We gather 30 to 60 million posts an hour, right? And we can feed that data directly. We just did a test this week on creating like a 9-minute podcast. And it was 2 different individuals, and it was completely indistinguishable from real humans just talking based on our data about current events. It was incredible. But I think that what we potentially could see here in the future is like a single-person unicorn. So a market cap of $1 billion of just one person operating a company, which is incredible to think about. And I think very shortly after that, even potentially an AI agent unicorn. And if that AI agent is given some Bitcoin or some cryptocurrency and left to its own devices, and the private keys are no longer in the hands of some human, that's an autonomous $1 billion entity that people are going to be querying to try and do business with. So I think that we're going to see these things in the next couple of years.
Very interesting. And you paint a curious picture. We'll touch upon some of those topics afterwards for sure. Ken, please.
Hi, I'm Ken. So it says on this card, so it must be me. I've been involved with the Origin Trail guys since 2017, around that time. My background is in global logistics and supply chain management. I'm incredibly old now, so as I've been involved in various startups, that was a while ago, but I'm a keen observer of the industry, particularly because my specialization is how technology has helped redesign and enable high velocity, highly complex global supply chains operate across all manner of different industries. And I'm most days these days, I'm either a non-executive director or an investor in small companies that are doing interesting things in this area. I have made a huge number of mistakes in my career, and I'm very keen to share those mistakes with guys like yourselves so you don't repeat them, because some of them were incredibly stupid and some of them just kind of came upon you. As regards artificial intelligence, my most recent startup happened just over a month ago, utilizing AI technology. One thing that I've learned going through this process, which has more or less been over the past 2 years or so, the rate of change, the rate of advancement of artificial intelligence is close on nothing I've seen before. I was around playing around with ARPA before it turned into DARPA and then founded the internet. Yes, I am that old and I do know those people. And as the internet or the World Wide Web really started to exploit the internet, that was pretty interesting. This is nothing like that. It's much faster and moving in ways that I would be prepared to bet that a lot of people, even here, fail to grasp how quickly this is moving. That has huge implications for trying to legislate, because most of the legislators are trying to legislate something that has already changed before they had their first meeting. It's fascinating and scary, and to the point of how you can apply apply artificial intelligence, or really watch the effects of artificial intelligence being applied, can work on different silos of technology or business or commerce. It's going to affect everything. So I think it's more of a horizontal impact it's going to have. And I have no clue how this is going to turn out.
Amazing. Well, we'll unravel some of those secrets for you and for everyone else, I'm sure, by the end of the conference today. Michael, please, could I ask you for a quick intro and your initial thoughts?
So my name is Michaël. I'm from Amsterdam here, so it's a local event, which is great. We are running several companies, but I started in 2017 in something we call crypto. It's historical, but that's what we called it back in the day. Now it's Web3. And actually, my background is on economic basis. So from there, I became a trader, investor, and now we have got multiple entities, as you can see on the screen, where I'm the founder and CIO of Consultancy, Capital, and Academy. And I'm a content creator, so we're launching a podcast ourselves in the next month. For God knows how long we're going to do it without AI. Same with trading. But I think that especially in the venture capital that we have and startup investing, I think AI is a vertical and it's horizontal. And most of the projects that we see in the vertical are also impacting DeFi or also impacting DePIN or just impacting the entire ecosystem. So it's quickly spreading out. And I think that basically in every startup, AI will be integrated anyways. And I think biggest impact, as you mentioned, is productivity, where we're going to be seeing smaller teams launching quicker, efficient markets, and just making life easy for a lot of people, including our venture capital, especially if we do a lot of research. So yeah, it's just a big thing out there.
Amazing, thank you. Chris, last by far not least, you're actually kind of like a two-hat person today, because you're also representing a panelist who couldn't make it sadly today, but we'll schedule him for next year immediately. So Toni Piëch is going to be joining us then. But Chris, please, if you could just do a quick intro for yourself as well.
Thank you, Tomaž. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Rynning. I'm from Norway, but I live in Switzerland, and it's a pleasure to be here. I guess I'm here in the context of being the managing partner of AMYP Ventures, which is part of the Porsche Piëch family office. You will know the Porsche family, so not the Porsche company, but the family office. And I run venture capital, private equity, and direct investments for them. And one of the investments we've made, I guess for context, is Trace Labs, the developers behind Origin Trail. So it's a great pleasure to be here. But I guess I'm here uniquely to talk about the context of AI as an investor, so putting my investor hat on. And what might surprise you a little bit is I have a somewhat of a contrarian, careful, skeptical view on AI. Not that I and the family see the potential and clear benefits of AI, but we've taken a view where we certainly don't want to be funding the potential end of humanity. So I think...
and thank you for that.
I think so I echo what everyone says in terms of the tremendous opportunity and the speed, not least, right? And I think in that, there lies a little bit of an area of concern or caution, right? And of course, we've been here before. It's taken quite a long time to get to Amsterdam today. If you go back billions of years from rocks and fish and mammals and dinosaurs and humanity. It took us a long time to get here, right? I think in context of how long it took to get here, I think we could face a T-Rex, metaphorically speaking, in a matter of years, right? And the question is, what will be the human or society's T-Rex, right? We've had, I mean, AI is nothing new. We've had Bayesian statistics, for those who probably studied that, predicting outcome. But now we're dealing with the inorganic algorithm, right? A completely new form of life that are not only predicting potential outcome, but also learning, teaching, and making decisions, right? And we've had first contact with AI, not only through Bayesian statistics, but through social media, right? And it wasn't Mark Zuckerberg that sat down and said, I want hate speech, or I want, the most, controversial content to show up in your feed whenever you go online. Those were algorithms that were looking at your behavior in this race for attention, race for engagement, and they figured out that hate speech kept you going and kept you connecting with your tribe, right? And I am concerned that we lost the first contact with AI, and now, since things are moving so fast and no one really knows where this is going, I'm not saying we shouldn't keep developing, but maybe we need to slow down. And I don't think necessarily it is through regulation or that government or standards or will lead the way there. They will try to catch up and impose regulation and standards. And I think it's up to the investors, and I think it's up to the entrepreneurs to ask yourself, what kind of company do you want? What kind of society do we want? What kind of nations do we want? Because we see that AI is a challenge to conversations. It's a challenge to democracy. It may be fueling dictatorships and tyranny. So I guess what we can delve into, and I'll stop there with my in this rabbit hole, is that it's not question of whether the costs outweigh the benefits. Clearly see the benefits, very clearly, like fighting climate change, finding a cure for cancer, clear. There's no stopping it. But I'm a little concerned, and this is what my question then to you as entrepreneurs and us as investors and regulators, is that on the way to getting the benefits, can the costs disturb essentially humanity and the society as we have it today? So it's more the way to the destination that I'm concerned about, not the destination itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think you're underpinning the importance of safety, which is something that's very much high on the vision, basically, of how the internet in the age of AI should look like. It should be safe. But then, of course, that's a packed word, and we need to unpack it in a way that there's a societal agreement somehow of what are the elements of that safety, whether that's on the transparency side, whether that's on us accepting what the black box is and just living with it, or do we want to see some elements of that be required, almost as, I don't know, we had a conversation like as a sticker on a bleach, do not drink because it's not good for you. And the same way, like, don't use AI if it's not following certain pathways that it should, and that sticker should kind of give you a pointer in terms of what is a good type of solution, what's not. And on the back of that, Joe, you mentioned that you're already kind of using AI partially within the company, but at the same time, Lunar Crush is keeping a pulse on so many different kind of segments of society, from crypto, obviously, the stocks, sports, politics, and so on and so forth, through social media. Do you feel that there's a significant, or have you maybe noticed it even, significant some impacts of happening of different AI, either tools for generating content or even AI agents that you mentioned before, being actively influencing the perception across these different fields, or do you feel that there's a potential for them to do so?
Yeah, I think there's a search for truth online right now. I mean, we talked about that a lot today, and even a little bit on safety. You know, you said don't drink the bleach. I was like, I think I probably went to school with some guys that probably would have drank that bleach. And you're not going to stop everyone from everything. That's why open source is so important. Yeah. Right. And I wish some of these large language models were actually not built inside of some of these large companies, right? Because you have access to ChatGPT, you have access to what they give you. Right? Like I can't type into ChatGPT, what's Ken's address, right? And it's not going to give me anything, but you know they've got God mode internally where they have that information, right? And so I think that it's just an outpacing because I think the cat is completely out of the bag, just like, you know, they were talking about this morning, and that was a great segment about some of the images on the internet that they didn't want and they tried to regulate out. They can't do that. And just like right now, Ken's address, sorry, use your example, Ken's address is not in ChatGPT, but you go to Google and you search, I guarantee, just like my address and a lot of people's, you can find it on Google, right? So it's just a matter of time before that works its way. And I think the scary part is the UX disruption there is so great that it just makes it so easy to figure out things, right? Like, hey, how do I build an atomic bomb, right? Like you're gonna search, figure it out. If you have an example of that, that's where it gets scary. And then another paradigm shift of that you said is conversation online, and right? Like, so if we're pulling down 60 million posts an hour, right? Like everyone's got their feed and you're trying to kind of go through that feed to understand what's real and what's not real. And with the content that's created within AI now, it's even harder to distinguish what's real and not real. You kind of need to fight fire with fire a little bit and train your own model to, like we were talking about this morning, kind of filter out what you can see and what you don't want to see, right? And I think there's going to be a couple avenues of that filtering that's really important. I think, you know, like SMS or WhatsApp and kind of like messaging services, you know, like right now, if you could tap like, hey, give access to email, give access to your phone number, you know, give like access to my social media, and then you start to kind of train what you want to see and what you don't want to see, you could have, I guess, a more benevolent social media experience that kind of keeps you down a different path, I think is important. But what we're trying to do is kind of clean that spam a little bit. That's our take on it, right? But I think the more important thing is everyone's individual take on what they want to see. Versus, you know, what the algorithm's giving you, right? Because of what you're clicking on and seeing. It's like, can you be a little bit more active versus passive in that? Because we're all very outmatched, I think, when it comes to, you know, the billions of dollars that have gone into these algorithms. Like none of us have the ability psychologically to like break through that, right? The only thing you do is finally put the phone down and say, I don't want to see this right now, right? But it's gonna eventually beat you. So I think it's to the user.
I mean, I think you're echoing also what Dr. Metcalf in the morning was saying around, you know, having a chance to fight fake news or unwanted, let's say, content in that sense, with giving power to the users by allowing them or us, each of us to have a chance to filter on our own. So having that level of transparency that you know what information came from where, but at the end of the day, having you as a user, that final filter saying, okay, you know, this is my story, I believe, or this is my conspiracy theory I subscribe to, and this is like the level of information that I'll I guess consume. Michaël, maybe on this topic of since you are a content creator as well, and you're interfacing a lot of content being produced online, is that something that you see? So AI, do you see something that's already kind of entering this field, or are you concerned perhaps that your content as well is being appropriated by AI companies for kind of replicating it in ways that you perhaps didn't intend to in the first place?
Well, I mean, I think it's happening on multiple levels. So you've got this with fake news, or someone is using my image on an Instagram account with all the data that I had somewhere, and they just scrape it and put it on the account, using it for bad actions. But I think it's also in the past like 6 months, especially in Web3, it's getting very complex for companies and projects to see who's real. So all out of nowhere, there are so many content creators with fake followers, fake engagements, fake bots. Everything is out there because it's so easy to just get it there. That's making social media more complex, and it's actually killing social media. So I don't know, Elon Musk can't tackle it on X. I think the only way we can tackle it is through KYC, but we don't want that either. But it's a big issue, and we are talking about this on a daily basis on our office or at our office. Like, how can we tackle it? Are we going with the boats, and are we also going to be unethical? And it's just not our vision, but we see it happening, and it's destroying.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, it's again creating this haziness, right? Of not having basically the transparency for you to be able to allocate actually accountability to different entities, and they are using AI or just the capacity to produce so much en masse, almost as a shield of their own, or like creating obscurity by design, by having this as a part of their front. But yeah, maybe on the content creation side, it's something where at least these types of creative tasks can be tackled in a much less critical, it's not so mission critical if there's a tiny mistake here and there, but when we're turning more towards the supply chain, it's much less of a margin of error is much smaller, right? Because the response needs to be either A, B, or C, or there needs to be a very, very concrete response to any task that's being performed by AI system or any other. So what would be your thoughts on how do you see AI impacting more, let's say, precise field? And I just realized we're knights around the very almost round table here, so there you go.
I think it's cute that you think that commercial supply chains are slightly less chaotic than real life. Let me give you an example. People are messy, and also they lie. So my address online, I never give my right address, so...
You can't find it.
I'm teasing you. Let me give you an example. With container shipping, when the container ship Ever Given decided to take an unexpected sharp right turn in the Suez Canal, huge disruption. This was the container ship that got caught out by the wind and ended up jamming the Suez Canal. First off, that put a huge brake on the global flow, well, not global flow, certainly the flow from Asia to Europe of physical traded goods. This is relevant, I'll come back to it. Another example is container ships catch fire, and that's also interesting. Now, does anyone here have any idea what I've got an apartment opposite the Port Felix, though, in the UK, and you see these monsters coming in and out constantly. Does anyone have an idea of the maximum number of containers the biggest ships can now carry? And they have fleets of these things. Anyone? Want to guess?
More than 5.
More than 5, yeah.
Between 5 and 1 million.
Yeah.
Someone said 1,000.
Pardon?
Someone said 1,000.
Yeah.
5,000.
Yeah.
I've got 10. Got 15.
Yeah. 15. Okay. The OOCL Felixstowe, I think, was in a couple of weeks ago. 23,000 containers on it. The concentration of risk in one of these things is enormous, apart from the value. So combined hull and cargo value is about $2 billion, on average, more or less. These things kind of like bouncing around. Now, when a ship of that size, or even half that size, they're called baby container ships now, 10,000 TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units, the size of a container. When one of these things catches fire and the services, assuming it's near to the shore, need to do something about it, they call up everyone. Fire, bomb disposal, the whole thing. Now you'd say that's ridiculous because we have all the data for everything that's on that vessel. It's in the manifest. No one in global shipping trusts the manifests. Governments don't. Port and terminal handlers don't. They kind of trust that it's more or less accurate, but they don't know exactly. And when you've got a fire on a container ship, that could turn into a very, very impressive bomb very quickly. So you have everyone turn up in case they're needed to try and resolve these issues. That's an example where even with, I mean, the complexity of most global supply chains, as John mentioned earlier, is mind-boggling. But it's essentially big global manufacturers the products that they're sending out from, so someone, a contract manufacturer like Foxconn, does a lot of iPhones and stuff for Apple and a whole bunch of other companies. They provide goods that get shipped to Europe, the States, various other places. Their operations are pretty much entirely automated. The data quality in their systems is pretty good, and the data that they provide to the carriers is pretty good. But the suppliers into them, 2 or 3 tiers down, they just trust that it's okay, but they don't really know. So all of this information is then submitted. Then you've got bad actors that are involved in this dance. So you've got people deliberately trying to leverage the transfer of goods through global supply chains that have dual use, which gets governments really scared. And how the hell can you identify what something is that's legitimate, or maybe in combination with some other things could be quite interesting for bad guys to do? So trying to get hold of all of that information and apply some kind of context to it and draw meaning from it, assuming it's all accurate, and it isn't, you'd think that would be ideal for a language model or an AI system to do that. But the big players in this game have been using machine learning, neural networks and so on for a while to do this. They've got better at it, but the problems keep getting greater purely because as more and more of the world hooks up to each other thanks to cell phones, Starlink, the internet, you've got a connected world, and that provides a lot more opportunity to subvert information. So you hope that the good guys are winning, that they can take a lot of the data that's held in commercial systems and trust it. But your point, Phil's points and John's points earlier, verifiability of data is absolutely vital. But the magnitude of the challenge you're trying to address is enormous. That's not to say don't do it, but it's pretty naive to assume that it's going to happen anytime soon. Okay. Certainly AI can help with that, but this is a huge challenge.
Yeah, no, I think we can echo the sentiment of having the it's complex to create something that's production ready in such systems, and it's close enough isn't good enough. Maybe it is, like if you're writing a blog and you can fix a few things and then it shapes up when it's something that.
Thomas, Michael mentioned Elon Musk and you were speaking of content, and I'm curious about Joe and Michael's view on content and content creation, and we have a potential, if not container ship fire. We have a potential fire 2 weeks away in Washington, D.C. That will have a big impact on all of us, for sure, both Correct. As entrepreneurs and investors. And I don't know if the flippening has happened. I don't know if you know what the flippening is, but I think it's when there's more content available created by bots than by human content. And I think you are in part human content creators. So I would be interested to know, for example, should you not, as entrepreneurs and us as investors, ask our companies to at least verify, or when content is created, this is created by a bot, right, and not by a human? And should we, for example, hold entrepreneurs and executives and potentially investors, what do I know, accountable for, not for what is being published, like not the human, the freedom of speech element, but what the algorithms are putting in front of you? I guess
I would say
an open-ended question.
Yeah, I mean, what's a bot and where's the line, right? Like if I'm using Photoshop, right,
isn't it organic and non-organic?
Well, like you could say you can ideate, right? So it's, you know, like right now, if someone from the press comes to me and they say, hey, I need a quote on, you know, Polymarket, and, you know, the Trump, someone had put, if you guys saw, like a couple whales put money into Trump winning on Polymarket. It's a prediction market. It's like, you know, probably the #1 consumer app in crypto now. And, you know, all I did was take a couple screenshots of Lunar Crush, tossed it into ChatGPT and said, hey, give me 2.5 paragraphs on this, and dropped it within like 30 seconds. You used to need a PR firm for that, right? And now the productivity of me being able to do that as a CEO and put my, you know, my thoughts in, and then I refined it, right? So there's some organic there. It's like we're still in like the cyborg stage, I would say. But yes, like, you know, there is an incredible amount of AI bots out there, but there's also an incredible amount of like actual real people in crypto. If there's like an incentive attached to anything, right? There are some areas in the world where it is cheap enough to have 10,000 people going and clicking on your website, right, for a cent or 2 cents a time. So it's very tough, and all those people could KYC, right? And then they get their friends and family to KYC for them, and they're operating 10 computers. And so it's a very difficult thing. So something that we are looking at that's really, I think, going to be a game changer is we're looking at each individual account, what that account has said historically, right? And then you can tell if there's a change or juxtaposition in what they started to say. So you can say, like, a lot of people take over accounts, or they buy accounts, right? Or they buy old wallets to qualify for something. There's a black market for that. And so what we're doing is trying to look at specific creator accounts and understand who that person is, which historically has sat inside of the social media networks, right? They have a profile of who you are, but that data is not available out in the public. So we should create that for everyone else so that you can kind of, hit an API or something and say, hey, is this potentially a bot? What percentage chance or probability is it that this account is a bot? And you can start to do that yourself. So, like, part of our mission is just to create transparency on the internet. We think that's a huge way of doing that, to pull out some spam. So you'll know, you won't know in real time if you see a reply to Elon Musk that says something, you're like, that seems pretty real. It's like, well, if ChatGPT has an IQ of 150, I don't know, it's probably better than a lot of us in here. It might be quality content, but if you see that content has, been reposted 400 times, you're not going to do that. You can't physically go and click on that and see that many things, but our systems can. And so we can start to kind of filter out who is real and who's not. And then as the bot farms continue to come in, we have probabilities, and so that should help clean things up. But it is also the incentive. There's no actual incentive for Twitter to really block too many bots when they're just trying to sell ads. The incentive balance is actually off there. So I don't know if you had any more thoughts on it.
Sorry, to that point, and to what you just said, for a long time, people obviously have been worried about social media and the negative impacts and everything else. The notion that you could regulate that bad behavior away, particularly if you're dealing with US companies, is fantasy land. The only way that the big social media platforms will pay attention to what anyone says to them is if you start attacking their revenue stream so that their investors start getting worried. To that point, you need to start looking at the advertisers. I don't understand if there's, or I don't know if there's a legal framework where you can go after an advertiser and say, look, if your content appears anywhere near anything like this, we're going to come after you. Now, chances are those advertisers will go to the social media companies and say, we need you to do this. And the social media companies will go, Christ, we haven't got a clue how the hell we're going to do that. So we better start thinking about how we can regulate that content. That's the only way I think, and what do I know, that I think that you can really get their attention is go after their investors, because everyone knows investors are very bad people. I teased.
Well, I may have to agree with you, but and we did look at Anthropic and OpenAI and decided not to invest, so that came at some price. We are invested indirectly through some funds that we have invested in that are shareholders of OpenAI and Anthropic. So it's impossible to stand outside of this hype, right? But we have invested much more into the safety valves and the provenance of AI because it's here. And I guess it was the evil late Charlie Munger, quite famous investor, that said, show me the incentives and I'll tell you the outcome, right? I'll predict the outcome. So I think, yeah, Elon Musk has a particular approach to his advertisers. I'm not sure I would recommend that approach. But I think also it starts with you as entrepreneurs, as founders, like your philosophy, your value, the talent you recruit, the product you put out. Do you set a barrier on how many reposts this can go, right? Yeah, so I think that's where we're coming from. We can keep going for 2 hours, I think, but
we're going to have some nervous people wanting to go to the restroom and the coffee in approximately 3.5 minutes. So I think what my final maybe point would be to, by the way, great ParaNet activity, the thing you mentioned. So like Lunar Crush is launching a ParaNet, that's going to be amazing, and I think that could be a really good point to focus on. To come back to the conclusion, I would ask maybe each of you for like a 30-second to a minute wrap-up thoughts around all the topics that we kind of touched upon. Joe, you take the honors, go first.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about founders. Like, if you're a founder, like, don't be afraid to jump like headfirst in, right? It's changing so quickly. You have to be utilizing these tools. You know, if you work at a company that's not letting you utilize these tools professionally, you got to start utilizing them personally, and you have to understand what's going on. It's like not being able to utilize Google and do research in the right way. And then if you are looking to jump ship and start a company, I do advise founders. I think it's riskier for you to not try to start your own business than it is for you to go, make $500,000 or euros a year at Google. So go start your own business in Web3, social media, and come chat with me, Joe at lunarcrush.com. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Ken?
Yeah, the world needs more entrepreneurs. As you said earlier, AI enables you to start a business and conduct things, get going much, much, much faster and at way lower cost than ever before. I've started been involved in starting a range of different companies. Now is by far the best time to do it with such a tiny amount of money. But what you need as part of the founding team is someone who's young enough and smart enough to understand that they don't know everything about AI, but are very, very proficient in AI disciplines as they are now, and that they will be on a continual learning curve. The guy that we got working with us transformed what we were trying to do because he was an absolute master of what was possible now. And could have saved a lot of time 20 or 30 years ago if that had been the case, and it's not now, but now is the time. So grab that opportunity and go for it.
Awesome. Michael?
Well, I mean, it's fun to be a founder, yeah, sometimes.
Amen.
I think I've got grey hair.
I got grey hair
and
already,
an
yeah.
alcohol problem, and a drug habit, and 5 ex-wives, and a criminal record.
Nope. But in terms of AI, I think it's helping things become more efficient, but it's taking away a lot of the fun that you have by building, doing social media, trading. So I think we need to take care of AI becoming a little bit more human. And I think in the coming few years, in terms of integration, I think that AI might actually be the next layer for blockchain to make that work. So those two are the big next steps forward, I feel like. So I agree.
Yeah, I guess I'll touch on some of the points earlier. I think it's important that we leave the future a planet, and we need to think about what kind of society and what AI can do for us, both on the benefit side and the cost side. We're investing in both, essentially. I think I also caution a little bit on this narrative that someone else is going to do it, so we just have to do it. If we don't do it, China is going to do it, right? And there is this. I wrote a book about AI and China many moons ago, and I want us all maybe to think about this narrative that China is going to do it anyway, and China is our competitor, and Russia is evil. I think we need to collaborate with the Chinese. It's another topic of discussion, how far China is in this race, US, Europe. But I think collectively, whether it's entrepreneurs or investors or regulators or business people, we need to come together and define what society and what humanity we want, and just be very careful on this way to the destination, because I think there's a ever so small chance we could fuck it up, and let's think about that.
Perfect. That's a very good last sentence. I'd like to thank my co-panelists here for taking the time. They're not afraid to get their hands dirty, so neither should you. Shameless plug, tomorrow's the workshop, so you should come to that too.